All right. It is the late morning, so still good morning, everyone, and happy Thursday. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this a little brief update on Hurricane Helene. We do have some new information that came to us from the National Hurricane Center as of 11 a.m., so it's just about 30 minutes off the press. There's a whole lot to talk about, right? Today's the day. Now, we've got time throughout the day today. We're not looking at a landfall until much later tonight. We're talking around midnight, maybe give or take a couple hours or so. But absolutely, we've still got several hours throughout the day today, or at least a few hours, to continue to finalize those preparations. But, you know, since we're about 12 hours or so now out from landfall, we could talk a lot more about what kind of impacts we are expecting on a local level. So without me blabbering anymore, let's go ahead and get right into it. There we go. All right, I want to start off with a satellite view of Hurricane Helene. It is a Category 2 hurricane. It's had a little bit of an interesting path over the past several hours since this morning. I want to kind of show you what it's been doing here. I'll zoom in for a second while I set something else up over here. What you're going to notice is sometime around early this morning, it decided to make a little bit of an eastward wobble. See that? It was on a path kind of due north-northeast, and all of a sudden it made that quick little turn towards the east, and now it's kind of right back on track. But here's the thing, that quick little wobble to the east absolutely can make a little bit of a bigger impact down the line in terms of the final landfall destination of this hurricane. And that's something that we've really been talking about over the past several days. All right, little changes, little wobbles while it's over the Gulf of Mexico will make big changes down the line when it's time for landfall. So again, that little eastward shift could mean a little bit more of an eastward trend to where it actually ends up in the end game. Here's the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center. This one came out at 11 a.m. Again, Category 2 hurricane, sustained winds of 105 miles per hour. So it is continuing to strengthen. The pressure is down to 960 millibars, so it's definitely getting down there. It's currently moving towards the north-northeast at 14 miles per hour. So we've been talking a lot about how Helene is going to be a quick-moving storm, right? It's going to be a little bit faster than most hurricanes are. So far, it hasn't really picked up that forward speed that was anticipated by the National Hurricane Center. But as of this advisory, the speed is a little bit faster. It's now moving at 14 miles per hour. And it's still so far away from us. You look at the location, it's 255 miles to the southwest of Tampa. That means it's about 300 miles down to our south. That means it has 300 miles until it gets here and 300 miles to play with in terms of those little wobbles either towards the east or towards the west. And all of those little wobbles will come together to impact that final landfall destination. So if you're looking for me to tell you exactly where it's going to end up, exactly what stretch of coast in what county, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to prepare you for what you should be expecting as we head towards the overnight hours tonight. Here's the forecast cone as you play it out. All right. This puts us at around Thursday, late tonight. Sorry, we're getting a little bit of a phone call there. Put that away for a second. A couple things to note here. Number one, the timing of it all has been pushed back a few hours. Okay. It's not moving, again, quite as fast as what was originally anticipated. So what that means is that the landfall time is going to be a little bit later. All right, so you look at that timestamp Thursday at 8 p.m., it's still going to be offshore. That means we're probably not anticipating a landfall until a little bit closer to midnight. And what that means is it gives us maybe a couple extra hours to continue to finalize those preparations. If you live by the coast, those preparations should be done by around 2 p.m., all right, because that's when the winds are really going to start to pick up, and we've already had some of the water rise in some spots along the coast as well. So those preparations along the coast are pretty much done at this point, either evacuated or a little bit further inland where you need to be. When we talk about inland folks, when they need to finalize those preparations or get to where they need to be, that's going to be around, I'd say, mid-afternoon, times like 3 o'clock if you live further south, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock as you get a little bit further north. But by 6, most of us should be done with what we're doing or where we're trying to get to, and we're just settled in for the night. And again, fast moving storm, by the time the sun comes up tomorrow, it's all gone. All right. So we'll talk a little bit about this forecast cone. It hasn't really shifted too much either way. If anything, at least the trend over the past 12 hours, it has shifted a little bit more so towards the east. So we're looking at a potential landfall spot that's most likely going to be perhaps anywhere from Alligator Point in Franklin County, so the far eastern reaches of Franklin County, anywhere to around Keaton Beach in Taylor County. All right, so that may sound like a large area to you, but when you're talking to a hurricane that is still 300 miles away, it's the tiniest of little differences of what happens right now where it is in terms of where it will end up. Again, I'll even zoom in a little bit more on where that current National Hurricane Center forecast cone is. Pretty much, again, anywhere from around Alligator Point to Keaton Beach. And we're talking about maybe 50 miles there, probably a little bit less. So this is a very slim forecast cone. That means the models are in very good agreement, and the National Hurricane Center has a lot of confidence that that is the path that it will go. Now, I'll tell you one thing, the eastern half of the hurricane is packing more of the damaging, dangerous, destructive winds. All right, so the eastern side, there's going to be a lot more of the hurricane force winds that extend a little bit further, definitely the tropical storm force winds, rather than the western side of the storm. The western side of the storm, at least along the eye wall, is still going to be very bad, very destructive. But that wind field on the western half of it is just not that large, so the winds quickly start to improve as you head further and further west. Just to show you, this is going to be out of our area probably well before sunrise on Friday. That's the next timestamp because it only goes by intervals of 12 hours. Friday at 8 a.m., it's going to be pretty much over Atlanta at that point. All right, so you can imagine it'll be exiting our South Georgia counties probably around 3 a.m., maybe 4 a.m. at the latest. So all in all, Helene's not going to stick around for very long. So that's the forecast cone. Of course, we've got all of the tropical warnings in place. The orange ones are the tropical storm warnings, but for the Big Bend in South Georgia, we are all under hurricane warning. So again, if you are leaving your house right now and still trying to figure out where to go, west is a good option. That's where the winds, again, will start to break apart a little bit faster than if you went east. But again, if you're trying to leave, should be already done. Maybe you got a couple more hours to get on out. But there's already some pretty nasty bands of rain out there. We've also had a couple tornado warnings down in Franklin and Liberty County. So we know the warnings at this point. We're already prepared and we're finalizing those preparations. I want to talk a little bit about the wind field again. The yellow area that you see is huge. That's the tropical storm force winds. Those extend hundreds of miles away from the center of the storm. The hurricane force winds, those are the ones that are going to be not as far away from the center. Those won't extend too far out. But again, we're expecting those tropical storm force winds to arrive later on this afternoon, even a little bit earlier this afternoon for coastal spots. Already seeing some of those tropical storm force wind gusts there. By the time we get to late tonight, early tomorrow morning, that's just one potential path, all right? But you can see that hurricane force winds are going to be extending at least, we'll say, 20, maybe 30 miles away from the center of the storm. All right, and those will quickly start to shrink once it moves on shore. Once the tropical system gets on shore, it starts to weaken. But since it is a fast-moving storm, it can travel a little bit further based on its forward speed while it still holds on to a little bit of strength. But that just kind of gives you an idea of that, yes, everyone will be impacted by some way by this hurricane. Now, not everyone will end up with those hurricane force winds. And again, this is just one forecast. If that track shifts a little bit further towards the east, then my friends in the eastern reaches of the Big Bend and even, let's say, Valdosta eastwards, you're going to be getting hurricane force winds. That's why you're under a hurricane warning. That's why we are under a hurricane warning, because everyone in our area still has the potential to see those hurricane force winds. So still taking this seriously, folks. This is another graphic given to us from the National Hurricane Center. Gives us the probability of seeing those hurricane force winds, and it's pretty much a done deal down by the coast. Spots like Wakulla County, Franklin, even into coastal Taylor. Done deal. Once you move a little bit further inland, those chances definitely start to break down a little bit. I see a comment that I'm staring at right now that says gusts up to 130 in Tallahassee. No. So don't ignore that one. Let's talk a little bit about storm surge real quick. I've still got a lot more to talk about as well. Storm surge is probably, if not the biggest concern from this hurricane. Now, of course, this only impacts folks in storm surge prone areas, which is down by the coast. What happens is the winds pile up the water. We live in the Big Bend, and it is a very storm surge prone area. The way that the coastline is shaped once you get underwater is super shallow. If you're a boater, if you're a fisherman, you know that you got to drive way out in order to get to deeper water. So that water can easily pool up onto the shallow coastline. We saw it happen during Hurricane Idalia. It's going to happen again with Hurricane Helene. The forecast is even a little bit higher. So what's the forecast right now? The potential peak. All right, so the National Hurricane Center says this is the worst that it could get somewhere along the coastline, anywhere from, let's say, Carabel all the way down to the mouth of the Swanee, 15 to 20 feet. That is some crazy numbers, and that's definitely possible. It won't be happening everywhere along that stretch of coast, but it will happen somewhere. All right, that's kind of how that potential peak storm surge works. You head a little bit further west, once you get to places to the west of Carabel in Franklin County, then that decreases to 10 to 15 feet, which is still a huge amount of storm surge. That's why everyone that lives on the coast in those storm surge prone areas should be gone. All right, already evacuated. At least you just get inland. All right, just get a few miles inland, get away from the water. So we talked about storm surge. We can talk a little bit about this, that's fine. We'll talk a little bit about some of the forecasted winds, just so we can kind of go hour by hour here. This is starting off at 7 p.m. These are sustained winds. Again, those are the ones that last for like 2 minutes. The wind gusts could be higher. So storm starts to get closer to shore. We get to around 10, 11 o'clock. Now you see winds a little bit closer to the coast that get close to that hurricane range. We're talking like 50, 60, 70 miles an hour. You get to overnight tonight, the storm starts to move on shore. Then you got sustained winds around the core, 70, 80, maybe even close to 90 miles per hour as it continues to move inland. And again, this is all dependent on exactly where it ends up tracking. So if you end up on the western side of the storm, not close to the eye wall, maybe expect sustained winds 30 to 40 miles per hour. If you're on the eye wall, on the western half of it, expect sustained winds maybe 50 to 60. If you're on the eye wall on the eastern side of it, that's when you can get sustained winds like 60 to 70. And then everything starts to calm on down by the time we get to early Friday morning. I want to skip over that, talk a little bit about rainfall. We've already got a lot of rain. All right, some spots it's pooled up, got a few inches, had a lot of flash flood warnings. We've still got about another 3 to 8 inches left to go. All right, these outer bands have definitely took a toll in terms of piling up the rain, but we still got a good deal left to go. I was just looking through some of the comments there. Here's how it looks right now on the satellite and radar picture. The Key West radar, I believe, is the one that's starting to pick it up now. So we kind of stop this in its tracks. There's the center of Helene, well offshore. You've got those outer bands extending all the way up. Look how large this storm is. All the way up into the Carolinas, even into Tennessee. All right, big, big storm. Here's the current radar picture. We had a couple tornado warnings on the board earlier. We still do, right there in Franklin County, that's heading towards the north and towards the west. So if you're in Apalachicola, Carabel, That tornado warning has passed you. Definitely a little bit of spin going on there. Nothing observed on the ground, but if you got family, friends there along that Franklin-Liberty County line, go ahead and let them know to get inside and stay there until that tornado warning expires. Let me see when it is set to expire. There we go. Set to expire at 11:15 Central Time, 12:15 Eastern. So that one is pretty fresh. It's still got about another 30 minutes left to go. So we'll keep our eyes on that there in Franklin County. But that's what the current radar picture looks like close to home. Lots of heavy rain just to the west of Wakulla and Leon County. Light to moderate stuff as you head a little bit further east. There's going to be periods of rain all throughout the day today. Let's show you a futurecast just so we can kind of get an idea of how things will evolve over the next 12 hours. I think this is doing a pretty good job of capturing what's happening right now. Again, this is one model, subject to change. Different ones say different things. So this is just the one that I'm going with for now. Let's put this off into motion. By the time we get to later this afternoon, probably going to be getting more intense rain bands. These ones are going to have some very gusty winds. They're going to have some very heavy rainfall as well. By the time we get to, let's say, 8 p.m., now we're getting into the real thick of it. This is when everyone needs to be, oh, we're good. Oh, we're good. We're good. We're just making sure the stream's working. We got a little note. Got it. Beautiful. We'll get out here in 4 minutes. Real quickly, again, once we get to around 7, 8 p.m., that's when that outer eye wall starts to kind of approach. That's the real nasty stuff. That's when power is really going to start to be going out. We'll continue to move this forward. You've got bands of very, very heavy rain. Here comes the eye moving onshore. Again, somewhere between Franklin to Taylor County, probably between Alligator Point and Keaton Beach. It continues to move inland very quickly, and by the time we get to around, let's say, 3 o'clock in the morning, 3, 4 o'clock, it will be to our north. All right, I got to wrap it up here real quick because Rob is going to be starting the noon show real quick with Lenitra as well. So here's your final impacts. A new tornado warning? Oh, I think we talked about that one. Yeah. We're good. Again, just keep an eye on those tornado warnings throughout the day. We'll keep you updated as well. But final thoughts before we get out of here. Again, we talked about storm surge. Winds 75 to 95 miles per hour near the core. That's at the immediate coast. Inland, that decreases. Around the immediate core and just to the east of it, 50 to 75 miles per hour. That's sustained winds. Again, those last for like 2 minutes. Wind gusts will be higher. Those short bursts of winds that only last a few seconds will be higher than what the sustained winds are. Rainfall totals, again, we're looking at around another 3 to 7 inches on top of what we already have. So some spots probably going to be getting to 10 inches, maybe close to a foot by the time we're all done with this. Things rapidly improve throughout the day on Friday. All right, make sure you tune in to Eyewitness News at noon with Rob and Lenitra. They've got you covered. Rob's got another full breakdown of everything. I've got to head on out, but we've got another one of these Facebook Lives that we're going to do today, I believe at about, I'll tell you in a second, 2:15. All right, another Facebook Live at 2:15, so I will see you there.
Rethink how you get breaking news.
A rooftop collapses at a suburban hotel.
With Local News Live, you get the big national stories direct from local reporters. Reporters who know the streets and the people. Authentic, unfiltered, live where the story is. Stay close, stay connected, because the big breaking stories are best told by those who live it. Local News Live, the news that hits home. Always streaming, always free.
Women are bad with money. That's what the world's been saying for centuries. But now, we've got something to say.
Save it. It's time to save ourselves by saving our money.
until we're no longer 80% more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
Save it. The falsehoods, the feelings of fault.
Then, the funds. Learn how to save for your retirement at WeSaySaveIt.org.
There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey.
Local News Live, always streaming, always free.
Welcome back. Well, here at Local News Live, we are tracking Hurricane Helene, now a Category 2 hurricane expected to continue to intensify, possibly to a Category 4 before making landfall along the Florida Big Bend area. And then from there, it's going to weaken, but still bring flooding rains to parts of the southeast, even as it makes its way inland later this week. Now, in terms of airport delays, we are looking at quite a few cancellations, I would imagine, across portions of Florida, so you'll want to call ahead. Also, minor to moderate delays developing through the day, not just in Florida, but also up towards the southeast. Gusty winds, however, in the northern plains could lead to minor delays.
It is time for the good side, and a woman in Georgia is making a difference one package at a time. For decades, she supported deployed soldiers everywhere by sending them care packages. Local News Live's Lena Allen shares her story.
People don't realize how much stuff you can fit in a box.
From new socks to puzzles to even food items, Patricia Garlick packs all she can into her care packages, all to show her support for deployed soldiers overseas.
And I decided that I could do something for our troops that weren't getting anything from back home.
She calls it Pride Packages. Garlick established her initiative back in 2005 after her son was deployed to Iraq. She would send him care packages every day, but when her son brought it to her attention that some of his friends didn't get anything from home, she knew she had to do something.
You're always wondering, is your son going to come back home? And we need to back our troops.
Even after her son came back home in 2008, when he finished serving, Garlick continued to send Pride packages. Now, 18 years later, she has sent over 5,000 packages to our nation's heroes. And in return...
Wow, so all of these are books filled with thank you letters from different soldiers that you've sent packages to?
Yes. Their letters have touched me, and that's what keeps me going too, knowing that there's a need there.
Wow, she's getting letters back from all those soldiers. That just shows what she's doing is having an impact.
Those binders just stacked this high full of letters. So you know that, obviously they appreciate it, but you saw just how much it touched her to be appreciated for all that she's doing for them.
I love how she did it for her son and then realized, okay, others could use this, and she still stepped up.
That's got a big heart for 18 years, right?
Amazing story. Well, thank you for joining us on this hour of Local News Live. The news continues at localnewslive.com.
When it's time to build strong, Kamala Harris knows who to call. With pro-union leaders vouching for us, we can take on the impossible and get it done in record time. Vote for the future we want to build.
Get launched in your new Kia from less than $100 a month with help from the ground control team at Jackson Kia, checking all the boxes. Okay, team, out of this world deals on our large inventory? Check! $3,000 more than a trade-in's worth? Check! Is the whole team working toward credit approval? Check! No service appointment necessary? Check! All systems ready for launch! Countdown to your new Kia with the newest Kia dealer on the Space Coast, Jackson Kia.
Choose joy. Choose the road. Choose your people. Choose your shot. Take it. Choose to get in there. Even better, get out there. That's it. Way out there. Choose your calling. Choose to really care. Choose to go for it. Just choose. We craft cars for those who choose to do more than simply move.
I wake up.
Choose joy. Choose your calling. Choose to really care. Choose to go for it. Just choose. We craft cars for those who choose to do more than simply move.
I wake up.
I had so many dreams, but life quickly got in the way. And every day it felt like another setback. Then, Rasmussen University saw my true potential and gave me the support and confidence I needed to become who I am today.
When it's time to build strong, Kamala Harris knows who to call. With pro-union leaders vouching for us, we can take on the impossible and get it done in record time. Vote for the future we want to build.
Get launched in your new Kia from less than $100 a month with help from the ground control team at Jackson Kia, checking all the boxes. Okay, team, out of this world deals on our large inventory? Check! $3,000 more than a trade-in's worth? Check! Is the whole team working toward credit approval? Check! No service appointment necessary? Check! All systems ready for launch! Countdown to your new Kia with the newest Kia dealer on the Space Coast, Jackson Kia.
Powered by WCTV.tv. Your news starts now.
The time to prepare is nearly over. Either get out now or hunker down. Hurricane Helene expected to make landfall in less than 12 hours. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for Eyewitness News at noon. I'm Lenitra Bennett. We'll have live team coverage across the Big Bend and South Georgia in just a moment. But first, let's go to meteorologist Rob Nucatola, tracking when the storm will arrive and what impacts we could see. Rob, how are things looking right now?
Yeah, the 11 o'clock information strengthened the storm just a little tiny bit, up to 105 mile per hour sustained winds, pressure at 960 millibars, but it also speeds it up just a little tiny bit. And over the past several hours, since like 2-3 o'clock this morning, there's definitely been more of an east movement along with that north. And that's also something that, if it continues, will make a few changes to the forecast down the road. It does still, at the National Hurricane Center, have a forecast for nearly 120 mile per hour sustained winds near that core, and only near that core, later tonight before it makes landfall. And there's probably still going to be some time between that 8 o'clock information and when it does make landfall, where there can still be some wiggle room on both where it goes and how strong it gets. So let's not get too worked up about whether it's 115 miles per hour, 120 or 130. It's all still very dangerous stuff, but we'll certainly continue to update you as it gets closer to the coast. And it does feel like that coastal landing time is probably going to be sometimes after 9 or 10 o'clock tonight. So it's going to be a little bit later. So the worst of the weather will start a little bit later. It'll still soon get out of here quickly tomorrow, and that's when we start to look for that rapid improvement in the forecast. Here's what it looks like. Still a huge system. There are still rain bands over parts of Cuba. There are still rain bands into parts of central Georgia and Alabama. So, I mean, we're talking several hundred miles from top to bottom and at least 350 miles from east to west. Just an enormous storm system. Here's what we're watching, and you can really see how that core zips across the 86 degree and 85 degree line of longitude. So making some progress east as it moves north, but a very healthy looking core with some decent convection firing up to the north and western side of it. And that eye in the middle is trying to really establish itself. It's been struggling, but it's there. Now that eye, not super huge, maybe 30-40 miles across at most. So where those strongest winds will be very close to that small area. And then once you start getting 20-30 miles away from that core, those winds are going to drop off considerably. We're starting to get to the point where the radars are going to be able to pick it up, so we'll be able to see more than just just the clouds, we'll be able to see what kind of rains we're looking at. And some of the rains that have been coming across some of our western areas have been a little bit strong. As a matter of fact, we even seen a couple of spinning and rotating cells through parts of Franklin and Liberty County for the last little while. So some dangerous stuff in addition to just a whole lot of water. Some of those areas in our western parts of the viewing area have had some radar estimates of up 8-9 inches worth of rain. So we're talking significant amounts of rain in areas like Franklin County and parts of Liberty County. It does look like this is what's left of that current tornado warning. It looks like it's getting weaker and weaker and is set to expire shortly. We'll continue to keep our eyes on this. We'll also be on the lookout for any other spin-up tornadoes. Those are possible with these outer bands that we're going to continue to experience throughout the afternoon. And I think we're going to continue to see a lot of water pile up near the coast. I'll talk more about the forecast, talk more about the storm in just a little while.
All right, we'll see you then. Thank you so much, Rob. Well, several local counties are under mandatory evacuation orders. Wakulla County ordered people to leave by 8 this morning. Our Brianna Shaw has been at St. Mark's all morning long, speaking with evacuees and local officials. Brianna is joining us live now. Brianna, what have they told you? What can you tell us at this hour?
Good afternoon, Lenitra. I spoke with Captain Jeffrey Yarbrough with the Sheriff's Office, and there are a couple of concerns that come with Helene. I want you to take a look at this. One of those concerns is the flooding. This is how things are looking on Riverside Drive. You can see the water is up past my ankles, and not too long ago we were actually on the other side of this road before a sheriff's deputy told us that we need to come on this side before the road became impassable. Take a quick walk with me over here. There is a deputy parked right here on this road, and he told me he's right there to make sure people don't try to drive along this road, because again, with water like this on the road, it's not dangerous to drive through, so they're just trying to make sure that people don't attempt it. Now, the storm surge on top of waves, rainfall, flooding, and wind, all expected to come with this storm, are of course top concerns for the area. This morning I actually ran into a family stopping through St. Mark's as they were fleeing from their mobile home in Perry, heading to Pensacola, where they're prepared to stay for at least the next few days.
We decided to head out from underneath it, or at least try to, but we're just not hanging out. Got the little kid and we're trying to do a little family adventure.
Now, I've already seen standing water and flooding, and it's really interesting to see how quickly, these roads are flooding. Within 20 minutes, we came back, and again, the water is above my ankles. We've also seen businesses boarded up and people anchoring their boats as the county issued a mandatory evacuation order. Captain Yarbrough says people need to follow that order and get out now if they haven't already.
You say, well, my house might be at this level or that level. There's still going to be waves pounding in your house. No house inland is built to withstand that kind of beating. It's my hope and my wish that tomorrow those same people can come back and tell us we were wrong and that it was all for nothing. But I would rather be wrong than have people stay.
Yarbrough says as the weather worsens, first responders will not be available during the storm. So if you need help, they will not be able to get to you until it's safe after the storm passes. Of course, all the more reason to follow those mandatory evacuation orders. For now, live in St. Mark's, Brianna Shaw, Lenny Charles, and back to you in the studio.
That's right. A lot of good information and advice there. Thank you so much, Brianna. Well, Wakulla County does not have any shelters. Some people are evacuating from Wakulla to Leon County. Leon County opened an 8th shelter this morning, Rickards High School. That means all Tallahassee high schools are now serving as shelters, plus Fort Braden School and Fairview Middle School. All these shelters are pet friendly. You can find a list of all of the local shelters on our website and news app. Our Capitol Bureau reporter Cody Butler joins us now. He's at the State Emergency Management Center in Tallahassee. Cody, what is Governor Ron DeSantis saying about the storm today?
Lenitra, right now, Governor Ron DeSantis is encouraging people to follow orders from local leaders right now. There are 27 counties across the state with some sort of evacuation order in place. The state has gotten more than 1,000 requests from local governments, but most of those are for after the storm hits. Many counties in the path of this storm are a financially constrained county as well and relied on the state in the last 2 hurricanes. Governor Ron DeSantis says there's still plenty of resources available for the state to help them.
We're in a very strong fiscal shape. Now, we believe in utilizing whatever levers available. If I can get money elsewhere, I will do that for the counties. But we're in a good shape to be able to step up and help them. And, we'll see. This is not projected to reach a Michael strength, but, you never know, right?
But some of that money is coming from the federal government. There is a post-disaster declaration that was approved, unlocking many resources from FEMA. Reporting live at the State Emergency Operations Center, Cody Butler, WCTV Eyewitness News.
All right, thank you so much for that latest update, Cody. And South Georgia is also bracing for Helene. As we mentioned, we have team coverage for you today. We're going to go ahead and go live to Thomas County now. Our Stacey Inez is there at the Emergency Services Center. Stacey, what did they share with you there?
Well, Anitra, I spoke with the Emergency Management Director, Chris Jones, and a lot to break down for people living in Thomas County. But one of the biggest things they want people to remember, if you need to evacuate, you should do that. If you're worried about the stability of your home, you should evacuate. If you're going to need power for medical equipment, for example, because he told me they are expecting the power to be out for days, and they are expecting thousands of trees to come down as well. So, of course, that slows down that recovery process when you've got so many trees down with all the power lines. But those are 2 big things that they want to make sure people are paying attention to. They also are expecting people to need to go to shelters, and so they're going to be providing information a little bit later about that as well. And of course, they're going to be putting all of that on their social media. But we've been talking to them all morning, Lenitra, just trying to get some of those main points from them.
All right, well, I'm glad you are able to get that information so that we can pass that along. Thank you so much, Stacey. But we'll head back to the Big Bend after the break. A live report from Perry, bracing for its 3rd hurricane in just over a year. Stay with us.
When it's time to build strong, Kamala Harris knows who to call. With pro-union leaders vouching for us, we can take on the impossible and get it done in record time. Vote for the future we want to build.
Get launched in your new Kia from less than $100 a month with help from the ground control team at Jackson Kia, checking all the boxes. Okay, team, out of this world deals on our large inventory? Check! $3 grand more than a trade-in's worth? Check! Is the whole team working toward credit approval? Check! No service appointment necessary? Check! All systems ready for launch! Countdown to your new Kia with the newest Kia dealer on the Space Coast, Jackson Kia.
I'm AJ Hires of Boniface Hires Kia, Melbourne, Florida, where you get up to $7,500 off new Kias or 0% financing. And Boniface Hires Kia is the only dealer to give you a warranty forever, where we've spent over $1.5 million paying out-of-warranty claims for our customers. BonifaceHiresKia.com, 1 mile east of I-95 on 192 in Melbourne, Florida, home of warranty forever. Thank you. Log on to BonifaceHiresKia.com.
Oh, hey. With Zeem, you can stream free local TV from all over the country. Zeem speaks for itself. It really doesn't need a celebrity spokesperson, but they promised me I could do this. Zeem. Always local, always free.
Welcome back. We continue tracking Hurricane Helene. Right now, we're taking you to Taylor County. The entire county was ordered to evacuate. Meteorologist Cutter Martin from our sister station in Atlanta joins us live in Perry. Good afternoon, Cutter. You found a business that's still open and helping people. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we're on US 19 here. Typically a busy route, and certainly we are noticing more and more people driving along it, but probably less than what you would normally expect for, heading into an early Thursday afternoon. Gas station behind me, the Marathon, is still open. One of the only still open here, and they have diesel. And it's interesting, a lot of people expect everything to close. Some people want everyone to close so that everyone can get out. Marathon gas station, though, helping out some of these resources coming into the state. We got video earlier. Looks like maybe both state and federal resources, the Army, National Guard coming in. They had those big, for lack of a better term, Army trucks coming in, fueling up. They were taking a break, and they were being told that they're staging here at a local elementary school. They're going to ride out the worst of the storm, the actual bad conditions, and then as soon as it gets better, they will be ready to hit the roads, get debris out of the roadways, and begin to restore normalcy here in Taylor County and in Perry. But again, guys, so far not too bad, but I think in this particular area south and east of Tallahassee, it's going to go from 0 to 100 very, very quickly as kind of the northeast quadrant of the system, as your meteorologists have been talking about, moves on shore. We're expecting the worst conditions later this evening.
Wow, it is amazing to still see a business open, but at least they are helping others. Thank you so much, Cutter, for that report.
Yeah.
We have talked a lot about how to prepare your family for Hurricane Helene, but what about your furry friends? Coming up, how to keep your pets safe in the storm. But first, Rob will be back to continue tracking the storm.
When it's time to build strong, Kamala Harris knows who to call. With pro-union leaders vouching for us, we can take on the impossible and get it done in record time. Vote for the future we want to build.
Get launched in your new Kia from less than $100 a month with help from the ground control team at Jackson Kia, checking all the boxes. Okay, team, out of this world deals on our large inventory? Check! $3,000 more than a trade-in's worth? Check! Is the whole team working toward credit approval? Check! No service appointment necessary? Check! All systems ready for launch! Countdown to your new Kia with the newest Kia dealer on the Space Coast, Jackson Kia.
What brought us to the UBC? A fair shot at a better future. Because
when unions are strong, our economy is strong, our nation is strong.
Kamala Harris is ready to crack down on corporate greed. And when it's time to build strong, she knows who to call. With pro-union leaders vouching for us, we can take on the impossible and get it done in record time. Vote for the future we want to build.
All right, there's been a lot going on over the morning hours with these bands of rain wrapping around the core of the system that is still 275 miles to our south. The system itself is gigantic, spanning more than 350 miles across and more than 700 miles from top to bottom. And there's rain that's falling from this system in parts of Cuba, in parts of Mexico, and in parts of Alabama. So, I mean, we're talking just a huge system. The core itself has been showing some moments where it looks like it's really ready ready to organize and grow, and then some other moments where that eye is having a lot of trouble. You can see all these darker colors spinning around that eye. That's the convection. That's usually a sign of a healthy tropical system. Now it's moving a little bit faster most recently, and it should continue to do that. It's also getting to the point where the radars are able to pick up the data a lot better than when it's further south and way out over the Gulf. So we're going to be able to see that more concentric look to it on the radar as we go through the afternoon. These bands of rain that have been wrapping around it aren't just scraping up against the West Florida coast, but instead it's bringing some pretty serious rain right into parts of our area, and some of those include some dangerous thunderstorms. So these will continue to lift through the area, not just bringing that storm surge that's going to be continuing to pile up all day and some impressive rainfall totals that are already up over 5 and 6 inches in places, but also it's going to continue to bring the threat for some thunderstorms, and some of those could even be the rotating thunderstorms. You see where some of those brighter colors are from near Apalachicola almost straight up past Bainbridge up towards Dothan, Alabama. That's where we're seeing some of those heavier rain bands wrapping around the system. If we start to zoom in, we're going to notice a couple other areas near Blountstown and in northern parts of Franklin County where there has been some reports of rotation. Right now, maybe just north of Blountstown, this is the one active rotating cell, and we'll see how long that is able to hold together. These don't last very long, but they're certainly very scary and very dangerous, and when the radar picks up that rotation, you got to take it real seriously. So that's the area now just north of Blountstown. We'll continue to monitor till 12:30 when that is set to expire. You see the green polygon that includes almost all of Franklin County. And that's because we've got flash flood concerns for all the rain. In some spots, 6, 7, 8 inches already. Now, there's almost like a back edge to the more moderate rains and the lighter rains, right? Highway 27 from like near Bainbridge and Colquitt up to Blakely and areas west, much more of the yellows. Areas east, much more of the greens, the lighter rains. But we've got a couple of pockets in parts of Grady County where maybe it's a little bit more than just lighter rain. Same when you head down towards Quincy and get a little bit further east into parts of Gadsden County towards the Leon County line. It's not as significant or is not as heavy with the rain as areas to the west are. We'll see the next band in a little while start to move through the area. It will bring some more rain to some more locations. The storm surge was always going to be the biggest issue for today as all that water piles up. 10, 12, 14, 18 feet is enormous amounts, and that's really, really dangerous stuff. That's the reason for all the evacuation orders. Wind, not the main issue, not during the day today. We're talking most of the breezes that we're going to have from now till past supper time will be less than 15 or 20 miles per hour, mostly from the east. Now, as the core gets closer, we'll start to see those winds perk up a little tiny bit, and where that core goes is going to make a big difference. Now, some of our wind gusts have been in 15 to 30 mile per hour range. Some of the tropical storm force winds that extend out from the core of that storm are up to 345 miles away from the core. So that's close enough to our area where we could see a couple of those gusts. And at Alligator Point this morning, I saw 1 or 2. We're looking at the futurecast winds. We get through 5, 6 o'clock tonight, and for the most part, we're still talking less than 20 mile per hour winds. But now we get to about 10:30, 11 o'clock, and the computers are starting to suggest more eastern areas with some of those stronger winds. I want to stress this a lot, that core itself is only going to be 30, maybe 40 miles wide. That is going to be the area that those strongest winds are contained in, and most of those winds are going to be elevated from the surface. By the time they get down to the surface, they're a little bit weaker. By the time you get 10, 20 miles away from that core, they're going to be weaker still. 20 mile per hour winds after a full day of rain can knock down power lines and knock down tree branches and cause problem. 20. So you start talking 50, 60, 70 mile per hour winds, and there absolutely can be some of those. Now you're talking some really dangerous things and some really devastating things. And if that gets pushed more to the east, where we've had all those problems from the previous storms, that compounds some of the problems. By the time we get to 3, 4, 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, the winds are turning from the east and southeast back to the west. That tells us the storm is long gone now, and we start looking for cleanup, and we start looking for things to calm down. This should be a one-day deal and gone during the day tomorrow. We may have a couple of showers that want to linger for a while. This particular computer has done a really nice job with the size and the scope of the storm. We're still working on that whole direction of it. I think this is close to where it's headed, and it should move fast through the area. It is already starting to pick up speed. We'd like to see it pick up more speed as we go through the rest of the afternoon and the evening. Here's a little different computer, one that refreshes a little bit faster and might be working with a little bit better data. Still has that east lean to it. Now, anywhere near near that core, still going to get some of those bigger weather situations. And I tell you what, some of those bigger situations mean some of those stronger winds and some of that more significant rain. So we'll be watching and tracking all of this as we go through the day today, and we'll continue to monitor and update you as we get into the evening and nighttime hours. There's going to be a lot for us to keep our eyes on. Please keep checking in with us. We'll have plenty for you as we go through the day.
For more than 44 years, Keith Lawson Services has provided Tallahassee and the surrounding communities with the very best in air conditioning, heating, and plumbing services. Our goal is to always offer you uncommonly good service, and we even roll out the red carpet before we enter your home. Reliable service backed by honest, courteous people. That's Keith Lawson Services. Give us a call today or visit us online at keithlawson.com. We are your independently owned American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
When it's time to build strong, Kamala Harris knows who to call. With pro-union leaders vouching for us, we can take on the impossible and get it done in record time. Vote for the future we want to build.
I'm TV's John Stamos. I've been hired to play the great Jack Perry, the creator of Zeem. This one's a challenge.
The tagline is simple, and if John can remember that, he's got a shot. Always local, always free.
What's first?
Always local.
Always where?
Local.
Always what?
Free.
Zeem is America. There, I said it.
Zeem, always local, always free.
When I take a roll on, I take it head on.
Making progress in life. Truth is, it's hard to do on our own. That's why this year, Progressive is giving $1 million in grants to small business owners. Learn more at progressive.com/purpose.
Just into our newsroom, we want to share more information for our South Georgia viewers ahead of Helene. Emergency officials tell us they want residents to save 911 calls for true emergencies only. They say don't call 911 for power outages or downed trees blocking your neighborhood. They're expecting thousands of calls during the next 24 hours. They also expect to open an additional shelter in the county. That information will be released later today. In emergencies like this hurricane, it's important not to forget about our four-legged friends. Many local animal shelters are not storm safe and need help housing animals during the storm. Suwannee County Animal Shelter and Champs Chance in Gaston County are looking for people to foster animals. Hamilton County Animal Control says enough pups have committed fosters that they were able to bring their outside dogs in.
What brought us to the UBC? A fair shot at a better future. Because
when unions are strong, our economy is strong, our nation is strong.
Kamala Harris is ready to crack down on corporate greed. And when it's time to build strong, she knows who to call. With pro-union leaders vouching for us, we can take on the impossible and get it done in record time. Vote for the future we want to build.
The future. I can see it.
Welcome to Hogwarts.
The best in entertainment. Hey guys. One incredible offer. Get Max included when you sign up for Dash Pass annual plan. Let's do this. Dash Pass annual plan now includes Max. It's your door to more.
All right, so a lot of what we're going to be doing this afternoon is watching to see where this core goes. There's a lot of showers and storms that are well out ahead of the core, and we're already experiencing plenty of those rain bands this afternoon. We started last night with them, and that's going to amount to an awful lot of rain when all is said and done. Now, the more that core wiggles to the east, or the more that it stays heading north, the faster it goes or the slower it goes, all going to have big impacts on what kind of weather which areas experience tonight. So please keep checking in with us. We'll have lots of updates as we watch and see where that goes. You can certainly see there's so much rain there already, and there's going to be a bunch more during the day. We are likely going to have spots that get more than a foot of rain when all is said and done. Tonight is when this storm gets close to land. Please keep checking in with us. We'll have updates for you all afternoon, I promise.
Comments that we've reported from Mark Robinson over the years. Vance didn't directly answer the question. He repeatedly referred to this as a sex scandal, but ignored the anti-Semitic and racist comments that were reportedly posted by Robinson on that porn forum chat board, and said that ultimately this was a thing for Mark Robinson to work out with the voters in North Carolina. Interestingly, though, he did refer to those comments, some of them as, I think, pretty disgusting. And when asked a follow-up question by a different reporter, he would not explicitly say if he supported Mark Robinson.
Interesting. Two more questions for you, Nick. What has Robinson's reaction been to the negative coverage?
Yeah, well, Robinson, we should say Robinson has denied, this CNN report has denied making these comments, and yesterday announced that he'd hired an attorney who filed lawsuits in other parts of the state over the 2020 election fraud allegations, which, have obviously since been debunked. But he's hired an attorney to investigate the source of these claims, he says, and presumably he's also made legal threats against CNN over this story. But, more broadly, Robinson has said that he's going to press on in this campaign, that he's going to hire new campaign staffers after his top 4 staff quit over the weekend, and he's going to continue.
Nick, finally, what have Democrats in North Carolina been saying about this scandal? How are they trying to capitalize on it?
Well, the number one thing that is happening in North Carolina is that the Kamala Harris campaign is trying to capitalize on this and tie these comments made by Mark Robinson directly to Donald Trump. Again, pointing out that they share, as they would tell you, they share ideologies, and then pointing out the long history between Donald Trump and Mark Robinson. Of course, really, Trump endorsing Robinson in his competitive primary that he won handily, arguably because of Trump's endorsement. The Harris campaign says they view North Carolina as their top pickup opportunity, in part because of this new scandal around Mark Robinson. This is a razor-tight race, which we know from that Elon poll yesterday. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris statistically tied here in North Carolina. But if Kamala Harris can win North Carolina, she basically wins the White House, and they see the Mark Robinson, scandal as their ticket potentially to opening up a lead in this race.
Local News Live chief investigative reporter out of Charlotte, North Carolina, Nick Oxer. Nick, you've been on Local News Live a handful of times over the past few weeks. We appreciate you stopping by and sharing this information.
Hey, thanks again.
And coming up, we'll check in with Local News Live meteorologist Sandra Brogan for a look at your national forecast.
Every day, stories break that get the nation talking.
These outages beginning in the early morning hours.
That's why every morning we are taking a deep dive into the big stories of the day. Now to an update on the big consumer news.
Stories directly from local reporters who know the streets and the people.
That shelter-in-place order is in effect. Authentic, unfiltered, live. Stories that impact you and your family. Local News Live.
Weekday mornings at 7 a.m. Eastern.
What brought us to the UBC? A fair shot at a better future. Because
when unions are strong, our economy is strong, our nation is strong.
Kamala Harris is ready to crack down on corporate greed. And when it's time to build strong, she knows who to call. With pro-union leaders vouching for us, we can take on the impossible and get it done in record time. Vote for the future we want to build.
Thank you for joining me. You're watching Local News Live. I'm Brian Pierce. Hurricane Helene is getting stronger as it heads towards Florida's Big Bend region. Last night, the National Hurricane Center upped the forecast for the storm, predicting that Helene will be a Category 4 hurricane before it makes landfall this afternoon. Experts say this could be the strongest storm to hit the United States in a year. Helene is expected to hit near Apalachicola, Florida, but much of Florida and parts of Georgia will experience strong winds and several inches of rain. Joining us now with the latest on Helene is Local News Live meteorologist Sandra Brogan. Sandra, this is the area, I believe, where Hurricane Idalia hit last time, right?
Exactly, yeah. And also Hurricane Debbie earlier this year. Hurricane Debbie, not quite the damage that Hurricane Idalia did last year. Hurricane Idalia actually made landfall as a Category 3, and like Ryan was just saying, Hurricane Helene could be a Category 4 hurricane as it makes its way on shore. So it looks like the timing on this, it's going to continue to move northward across the Gulf of Mexico, strengthen to a Category 3 by around lunchtime, I would say, and then possibly to a Category 4 as it gets closer to the Florida coastline. And so again, this could be later this evening when we see the center of the storm making landfall along the Florida Panhandle. And again, it looks like this is going to be the Big Bend area. The forecast track has held steady over the past several runs, showing that it is going to be the Big Bend area. So it's a strong likelihood that that will be the case. And like we were talking about with Hurricane Idalia, they had storm surge of 7 to 12 feet. That was a Category 3 hurricane. So with this hurricane, Hurricane Helene, the National Hurricane Center is projecting that we could see more than 12 feet in that storm surge, where you see the purple shading, so the Big Bend area stretching southeastward. And it's stretching southeastward because we usually see the highest impacts from any storm system or any hurricane in that right front quadrant. And here's why, because notice the counterclockwise spin of the storm itself. So that's giving that push, and then also the movement, that forward movement of the storm, that's just more of that momentum. And so that helps to push the water up against the coastline, especially in that right front quadrant. So that's why they are anticipating as much as more than a 12-foot storm surge in those areas. I'll have more in a few minutes.
All right, Sandra, thanks for the info. We'll talk in just a little bit. Well, people across Florida's Big Bend are bracing for a third hurricane to hit in 13 months. State leaders are doing what they can to make sure everyone is ready before and after the storm. Local News Live correspondent Cody Butler is covering the latest from the State Emergency Operations Center.
Governor Ron DeSantis says now's the time to execute your plan. At least 20 counties in the state have some sort of evacuation order in place, and it's a routine many people here in this area are becoming all too familiar with.
Right now, it's just time to get to work and make sure that people have the supplies they need.
State Senator Corey Simon spent Wednesday morning bagging food at Second Harvest Food Bank in Tallahassee. The food will be sent to distribution sites across his district in the Big Bend region once Hurricane Helene moves through.
Right now, we're just preparing to wait out this storm. trying to make sure that we have all of our bases covered.
Severe weather hit Simon's district hard in the last 13 months. Hurricanes Idalia and Debbie and deadly tornadoes hitting Tallahassee in May. And now a hurricane warning is in effect again.
Same song, different dance. It's unfortunate. These folks have been through so much. And I just pray for all the families during this time. It's just a terrible time for these families.
Governor DeSantis says there's still a long road ahead for some.
There's been a lot of bounce back, but there's still, with a storm that big.
Senator Simon knows the weight of these storms have on the community.
It's just been really difficult, but I do know this district, and I know how resilient we are. We'll come together, we'll get through this, and we'll come out better on the other side of it.
Governor DeSantis says many local governments are still asking for help, with about 1,000 requests already made. Most of those requests are for after the storm, so things like food, tarps, and water. At the State Emergency Operations Center, I'm Cody Butler reporting.
And leaders in our nation's capital are doing what they can to help Florida get ready for Hurricane Helene. President Biden approved a pre-landfall federal emergency declaration for the state. It authorizes the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA to help state lawmakers. Governor Ron DeSantis in requesting the declaration. Many of them said federal resources are needed to respond to this storm.
So it's possible to actually prepare for federal disaster relief by having the president recognize a disaster before it actually happens. And that's actually makes logical sense when you think about it. So we can get all things together ahead of time to help us recover rapidly.
FEMA has also pre-positioned teams and critical items in regional distribution centers ahead of the storm. New York Mayor Eric Adams is indicted on at least one federal charge. That's according to two sources familiar with the situation. There are no specifics on the charges, but the news comes after a months-long federal investigation into campaign fundraising violations and foreign influence. Adams has previously denied any wrongdoing and reiterated that claim Wednesday and said he would fight any charges.
I will fight these injustices with every ounce of my strength and my spirit. If I'm charged, I know I am innocent. I will request an immediate trials so the New Yorkers can hear the truth.
And the family of Tyree Nichols says they're praying for a just verdict in the trial for 3 former officers accused of beating Nichols in January of 2023. On the stand yesterday, a former MPD officer said he lied about the use of force that he used that night to look out for his family. Local News Live's Jerry Askin has the latest.
So God uphold and uplift them.
A passionate prayer for justice Wednesday morning as supporters and attorneys joined Tyree Nichols' parents during week 3 of the federal trial for 3 former Memphis police officers charged in Tyree's beating death.
This is one of the most emotional trials I've ever been involved in.
An emotional trial where an emotional apology was given Tuesday by former officer Desmond Mills Jr. about the Scorpion team's actions. Mills testifying he was angry because he pepper sprayed himself by accident. He testified that the officers went too far and then lied about the assault to try and cover it up.
Officer Mills, without knowing it, just talked about why we're here, and that's for accountability.
Mills, who's already pled guilty to federal charges, said his family was on his mind when he left out vital information regarding Tyree's injuries. Mills testified that MPD has good insurance and his job was vital in supporting his wife and kids, including his special needs child. He also admitted that he took off his body camera, which goes against MPD policy.
We still believe that we're going to get systematic police reform in Tyree's name.
The family only hopes and prays for one thing, and that is justice for Tyree.
You're watching Local News Live. We'll be right back. But first, here's a look at South Bend, Indiana, the home of the University of Notre Dame. Nice clear skies there. Still ahead, a look at your national forecast.
When it's time to build strong, Kamala Harris knows who to call. With pro-union leaders vouching for us, we can take on the impossible and get it done in record time. Vote for the future we want to build.
Progress. Moving in a positive direction. We all want our lives to do that. Why is progress also in our name? We've always believed insurance should do more. That's why we've gifted over 1,000 vehicles to veterans, funded housing programs for families in need, and why we're working to make roads safer.
You're doing good.
And housing more fair. For us, that's real progress.
Local News Live, we're tracking severe weather in Hurricane Helene. Let's send things over for a look at your forecast with Local News Live meteorologist Sandra Brogan.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Well, we already have the rain overspreading Florida, making its way into the southeast as well, as we have an upper level trough across the eastern U.S. that's helping to draw all that moisture northward. And so, in fact, we're seeing these temperatures that are going to be held down for today and for the next several days, really to below average because of the rain that we are anticipating in these areas. Also, in contrast, we have excessive heat warning in place for Phoenix metro area. Today, their temperatures 12 degrees above what they typically have for this time of year because we have a ridge of high pressure that extends all the way up to the northern plains. Look at Bismarck, more than 20 degrees above what they typically have for this time of year. So as for today, we're looking at 95 in Rapid City, 109 in Phoenix, 102 in Las Vegas. But again, storms already making their way across Florida. Also, we're seeing that potential for those showers and storms across the southeast as we progress through the day. And upper level low, that's going to keep conditions wet even as we look ahead in the next several days, even as that system makes its way over land. And with that said, it's going to kind of keep that remnant moisture in place for a while, leading to those flooding rains.
We are less than 100 days away from Christmas, and experts say you might want to consider starting your holiday shopping sooner rather than later. For our Consumer News Check-In, consumer reporter Cassidy Williams joins us with details.
Yeah, a recent bank rate study found a quarter of people say they are already stressed about the cost of holiday shopping. But if you start now, you can relieve some of that stress.
We're still a few months away from when the twinkling lights go up in the mall. But for many, the holiday shopping has already started.
I know, it seems like it starts earlier every year. Believe it or not, 1 out of every 8 holiday shoppers has already begun making purchases. Another 1 in 8 are planning to start this month. A quarter are planning to start next month. So if we roll all that up.
You're watching Local News Live. I'm Nicole Newman. Happening now, FEMA's Administrator Deanne Criswell is expected to speak at today's White House press briefing. This is as Florida and the Southeast prepare for impacts from Hurricane Helene. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Ready to provide further assistance to impacted states as needed. We continue to urge residents, especially those who have been instructed to evacuate, to heed the warnings of local officials. With that, I have here to my right the FEMA Administrator, Criswell. Come on up. Deanne, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Corrine. Good afternoon, everybody. As you heard, I did just finish briefing President Biden on the impacts that we are expecting to see from Hurricane Helene. And as I told him, we have been preparing for this storm for a number of days, and we began moving resources into Florida on Monday. I just want everybody to know that this is going to be a multi-state event with the potential for significant impacts from Florida all the way to Tennessee. And the president wants to make sure that everyone is paying attention to the potential life-threatening impacts that this storm may bring. And he has directed me to travel there tomorrow to assess the impacts. The entire state of Florida is under some type of warning right now, whether that's a hurricane warning or a tropical storm warning. And we expect life-threatening flash flooding in the state's north as the storm continues to move north. And so I need everybody to pay attention to their local officials. They're going to have the best information on the specific risks where you are at. We're already seeing impacts in Florida, and the forecast indicates that we could see up to 20 feet of storm surge. So just think back 2 years ago to Hurricane Ian. The peak storm surge from that was 14 feet, and we saw the amount of destruction, and 150 people lost their lives, the majority of them from drowning. So please take this threat from storm surge seriously. Residents that are in these areas, they can still take action. They can take action now to move out of harm's way. And remember that you may only need to go 10 or 15 miles inland to get away from the threat of the storm surge itself, because water is the #1 reason that we see people lose their lives in these storms. So please don't underestimate what the impacts could possibly be. So at the president's direction, we have over 1,100 personnel so far across the federal government supporting the preparedness efforts for this storm. We also have an additional 700 personnel from FEMA that are already in these states supporting other disasters that we can quickly pivot to support any of the response needs as needed. Some of the resources that we have already deployed include 8 search and rescue teams across Florida and Georgia, as well as resources from the Coast Guard, the Department of Defense, to immediately support any life-saving operations as needed. The Army Corps of Engineers has power restoration teams and debris specialists who are going to be able to help restore power and support debris removal operations as soon as it is safe to do so. They have health and medical task forces from Health and Human Services to evaluate the impacts to medical facilities. We have food, water, generators, and tarps that are deployed to staging locations across the region, and so they are easily accessible and movable post-storm. And the Red Cross is actively standing up shelters in areas that are expected to see and feel the impacts from Helene. My regional administrator is currently embedded in the Florida Emergency Operations Center, as well as incident management assistance teams in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama, and we have one currently moving to North Carolina today, so we can ensure seamless communications between the federal government and the needs of the states. I'm very grateful, as you heard, President Biden quickly approved pre-landfall declarations for Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. And this allows us to immediately provide any of that life-saving support in the coming days. And I'm grateful for the rest of the federal family that is there on the ground working with us side by side as we prepare to support the American people for what is to come over the next several days. I just want everybody to know that the Biden-Harris administration, we are ready for this event. We have aggressively pre-deployed resources. We are postured for whatever response might be needed. And so let me just say one more time before I take any questions, take the storm seriously. People in Hurricane Helene's path, you need to listen to your local officials. If they tell you to evacuate, please do so. And if they tell you to shelter in place, then that's what you should do. They're going to give you the best information that you can do for your specific situation. Those decisions can save lives. And with that, then I'll take questions.
Thanks, Dan. So this is likely to be the 21st billion-dollar weather or climate disaster this year. So does FEMA have the resources to keep on responding to disaster after disaster like this?
So we have absolutely enough resources to continue to support the life-saving response that we need to for this event. I think everybody's aware that we went into immediate needs funding as our disaster relief fund, the funding was running low. But the reason we do that is to make sure we have enough money for an event just like this. And so I want everybody to know that we have exactly what we need, and there are no limitations to our ability to support the response for this disaster. As we continue to go through the recovery, though, for all of these disasters, that also takes personnel. And we're going to continue to work through with our states about what they need and how we can best adjudicate those resources. But we are seeing an increase, and we're seeing a strain on our staff with more of them deployed for longer periods of time, helping to support these communities recover.
And just also related to the money here, some pretty substantial losses projected in terms of the crop insurance, in terms of the flood insurance. There's no new money in the CR as far as this is concerned. Is there any expectation that you're going to have to go back with a supplemental request?
So we did put a supplemental request in with the CR. It does not give us a supplemental at this time, but it gives us the ability to spend the money that was put forth in the president's budget. But we're already through INF $9 billion, close to $9 billion in projects that we have put on hold that we can't reimburse communities for. Once we lift INF and once the CR goes into effect, we'll be able to pay those. But without a supplemental, we will be back in INF probably in the January timeframe.
Can you talk more about how widespread you think prolonged power outages will be and what those power restoration teams are doing to prepare? Is there anything they can do proactively, before the storm?
So Florida has a really robust plan, and they have really aggressive targets to try to get the majority of people, I forget what the exact percentage is, I think it was 85 or 90% within 48 hours back up. And they have several thousand resources that have been pre-positioned to come in and support Florida Power and Light or the other utilities to help them get the power back on. We expect widespread power outages from this. When we think about Tallahassee, it's got a lot of tree canopy. So those trees are going to come down and impact those power lines, and the debris and the ability to detangle the debris from the power lines is what could take a long time. The power restoration teams, they do a couple of things from the Army Corps. One, they can help us put generators in on critical facilities to help make sure that those facilities have power, but they can also make assessments on how to prioritize some of the work so we know where we need to put our efforts to help the private sector utility companies get the power restored as quickly as possible.
Could you talk a little bit about how the response has changed based on the severity of the storms? I think we're seeing an increasing storms with increasing severity. So how does that change the response for you? I mean, I know it's more manpower, but what else? How else does it change?
I think the biggest thing is that we want to get things in place early. This is why we've been moving resources into the area since Monday and we know there's a large population that's really vulnerable in Florida, and so that's why we have so many search and rescue teams that are able to come in and augment the really impressive amount of teams that Florida already has within the state, right? So this is on top of what they already have. And so for us, it's making sure that we are sending more than we think that we'll need, and if I don't need them, I can send them home. What I don't want to do is be short. I want to make sure that I have enough that can support whatever the states might request.
You said that you are headed down there tomorrow. Did you discuss with the president whether it might be possible for him to make the trip down in the coming days? And secondly, is there a single piece of advice or warning that you wish in these kinds of situations people would heed more seriously that you might want to...
All right, here we go again, talking about what we can see out there with this camera view, which is kind of hard to see. That was St. George Island, the bridge, well, we lost the camera for you, but it's all right. We can show you what's going on with Hurricane Helene as of the 11 o'clock information. We're almost up on the 2 o'clock info, and we'll, I think, get the next upgrade in wind speed and downgrade in pressure, or upgrade in pressure for a little lower pressure, because the system looks like it's getting a little stronger. It does look like it's moving a little faster to the north-northeast at 14. The National Hurricane Center still expecting Category 3 strength before landfall, maybe up near 120 miles per hour. We've got time to fine-tune those details for you. And remember, we don't use the center of the cone. We use the entire cone as possible destinations for where the core of the storm can be. And remember that core can spill outside the cone as well. So there's lots of possible locations still. And I do think we're going to continue to talk about that. Hey, I guess the camera's back up. We can show you the St. George Island Bridge, and there's not a lot of room underneath the bridge like there normally is. So those water levels are rising, and they're going to continue to rise as we go through the afternoon. During the day today, it was always going to be about the water piling up on shore and about the rain. Tonight will be more about the wind, and then as we get into tomorrow, it'll be about cleaning up and improving conditions. But the hurricane is what it's doing, and it's moving to the north. It is still tremendous in size, and as it continues to be so big, it's wrapping around those showers and storms all up and down the west coast of the Florida Peninsula, and they stretch up into parts of central Georgia and Alabama. So that's a huge amount of space where rain is falling from the system. This is what it looks like a little close up here on the infrared satellite, and at times that eye really looks like it's trying to organize and jump out. At other times, it looks like it's struggling. Where we see these darker colors, that's the convection, the showers, the storms. The more of that we see around that core, the more we say it's healthy and strengthening. Let's go to a little different look. This is the visible satellite imagery, and you can really see at times not just those bubbles that look like right around the core, that's the convection, but you can see that eye really trying to form as it moves right across that line of longitude right there. So yeah, it does look like it's starting to take a little bit more shape. It's been having a tough time all day, and we're okay with it having a tough time because that's an indication of it getting stronger when that eye really gets more clearly defined. On the radar view, you can see that circulation center down towards the south, still a couple of 100 miles from our area. So it's still going to be hours of these outer bands wrapping around and bringing rain into our region and up and down the Florida Peninsula, and we will continue to monitor them. Some of the rain has been heavy. Some has even had some rotating individual cells, like in parts of Franklin County, Liberty County, and Calhoun counties later this morning and early this afternoon. So we've certainly seen some exciting weather already. We've also seen quite a bit of rain in some areas. Some of the reports from some of the areas to the west already up over 6, 7, 8 inches worth of rain. So there's a lot for us to keep our eyes on. There is a back edge to where those heavier rains are. A lot of it is maybe like Highway 27 from Bainbridge and up north towards Blakely, and you get to the west, that's where the more significant rains are. If you go a little further south, it's going to be Liberty County and Calhoun County and Jackson County. That's where the more significant rains are. It's a lot lighter for much of the viewing area until we get maybe east of Valdosta. Got some spots in the Suwannee Valley where it's not raining at all for now. And that's what happens with these bands. You get some of those more serious rain bands, and then you get some periods of the day where it's not raining at all. We've had some flooding concerns for much of Franklin County. So in addition to the storm surge potential, now we got flooding too from all the rain. I don't see as much rain across much of the area, but a lot of the reports I'm seeing are between 1 and 2 inches worth of rain already, and we haven't gotten some of the heavier stuff yet that's coming later on tonight as that core gets closer. The storm surge will continue to push up against shore throughout the day today. Anything up over 9, 10 feet is really, really incredible amounts of storm surge. When you're talking 15 to 20, that is really, really dangerous stuff. So far, I haven't seen any winds up over 20 miles per hour, at least not sustained. Most of our winds have been in that 5 to 15 mile per hour range. Some of the gusts have gotten up over 30. That's all. Now, there are some reports that around that core, you can extend out 345 miles and still feel tropical storm force winds. We are within that 345 miles now, so we'll be looking and seeing if we find any of those wind gusts that are up over tropical storm force, and that's up over 39 miles per hour. This computer model here, we're getting into the more shorter term stuff. So it usually does a pretty good job of filtering out some of the noise. So now if we watch we get to maybe 5, 6, 7 o'clock, and here comes the next band, and that one might be closer to the core, which looks like it's going to be getting towards land sometime before midnight. Everything is slowed down a little bit. Yesterday, the thinking was the worst of the weather would start around 6 p.m. and be over by midnight. Well, now it feels like maybe we don't even start the worst of the weather till 8, 9, 10 o'clock, and it continues until 2, 3, 4 a.m. Where that core goes is going to make a difference. Everyone gets focused on landfall and who gets what. But here's how it works. The core is going to be 30 or 40 miles across, maybe not even that big. The strongest winds are going to be in the area directly around that core. So that's where those strong winds are going to be. And those strong winds are elevated up in the atmosphere. When you get down, those winds get a little bit weaker, a little bit. And then when you start to get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 miles away from the core, those winds get significantly weaker. So not everybody gets those maximum sustained winds that usually nobody gets. Now, there can absolutely be strong and dangerous winds depending on where you are in relation to that core, and it only takes a 20 or a 30 mile per hour wind to knock down power lines and branches and tree poles and all that kind of stuff. So that's enough to cause trouble and power outages, let alone if you get 60 or 70 or 80 mile per hour winds, and those are possible. So we'll be watching, we'll be updating you. Please keep checking in with us, and we'll let you know if there are anything like that and where they are going. We'll have a much better handle as we get through the rest of the afternoon towards the evening hours. I do think we're all going to get a bunch more rain, and it's going to last well past midnight, and there's going to be some scary periods from the nighttime hours into the very early morning hours when that core is moving through wherever it moves, and it's going to bring the worst of the weather with it during those hours, probably after 8 or 9 p.m. and before 2 or 3 a.m. That's the window. So please keep checking in with us if you can. I do expect to see things improve dramatically tomorrow, and it does look like a nicer weekend. But we got to get through today first. I think today is more about the water piling up on shore, that storm surge for the next few hours, and these outer bands for the next few hours. Then we talk about the core itself getting here probably after 9 or 10 p.m. and then getting out of here maybe after 2 or 3 a.m.